Many of you know my mother-in-law. She's a wonderful person and has a lot of talents. On one Christmas, when I believe Becky was 14 and Jeff was 5, we received a package from her. And inside the package, there were 4 envelopes. Each envelope had $25 in it. They looked further in the envelopes and they found out there was a note from their grandmother that said, "You need to know that many people around the world do not have all the wonderful things in life that you do. Please use this money to serve them." Dottie found a church close by that was sponsoring an evening where people who were less fortunate could come. And then people in the town were to provide blankets and clothing for them. They went to Target and bought blankets and clothing. And Scott decided a flannel shirt would be great. He picked out an extra large. His mother tried to coax him and tell him that was too big, but he insisted he needed to have the extra large shirt. So they attended the event that evening, and Scott was holding his shirt, and somebody burst through the door. It was a very cold day, and all they had was a T-shirt on. So Scott decided that's the person that needed his shirt, and he gave it to him. Interesting enough, that shirt fit exactly right for him.
When our kids were young, one thing that Mary and I thought was important was that they feel comfortable around kids with special needs or just other people with disabilities. So we thought we would start by volunteering at the Special Olympics. So we headed to Beaverton and we went to the bowling Special Olympics. The kids were so excited to be able to cheer on the Olympians, and the Olympians are so excited to have fans there that it was a wonderful getting started experience. And while we were there, we met a guy named David Johnson, who became kind of a lifelong friend to the family. And one of the things that David loved was sports, and so he came to all the Glencoe football games that the boys were in and just loved watching the games. The fun thing about David was he had Williams syndrome, which makes you always happy. Among other challenges he was always happy. So he'd look out the window and see a tree and start laughing and say, "There's a tree." But he always would cheer us up whenever we were around David. We loved it. Then when our kids grew up, Tanner went to school and he joined the Best Buddies Club in BYU. And he became friends with Big Al. And Big Al became his really good friend. They'd go to movies, they'd go to games, they would celebrate birthdays together. And even when Tanner had surgery and he was really in a lot of pain, Big Al was right there cheering him up. The last thing I'll mention is Tuesday Treasures. And this is a Presbyterian church in Hillsboro that once a month on Tuesday nights, they'll get all the disabled adults in the area together and have fun activities for them. And Mary just loves participating in that and volunteering for that. And last Tuesday, they had a Christmas party with them. And Santa Claus came to visit, and everybody had a wonderful time. From all these experiences, I think it's safe to say that the light they have brought into our lives is a lot brighter than the light we've ever given to anyone else.
when we moved here from Illinois, we moved to the McKay Creek ward, and there is a sister in the ward named Jan Bird. And she was sick with an illness, and she needed to have meals brought in. And there was a week where she was particularly having a hard time, just struggling with being sick. And at this time, she decided to kneel down and pray and say, you know what, Heavenly Father, I'm just really having a hard time. I need you to help me out. And it's something that would really make a difference. I know it's not likely, but if I could just have someone bring me spaghetti and Jell-O, that one thing alone would get me over the hard time I'm having today. Now, meanwhile, the assignments had been given out for who was going to bring the meal in that week, and I had volunteered to bring the meal in that week. And I was going to make a fabulous meal of shepherd's pie and homemade rolls, and I had the shepherd's pie and the mashed potatoes, cooking on the stove, and I'd put the rolls out by the fireplace to rise, and it was time to put the rolls in the oven. So I went around to the fireplace to find McChesney in front of the fireplace, and she had poked every single one of the rolls, and they'd all flattened down like pancakes, and I tried to revive them and to no avail, and lost track of time in the meantime, and completely went back, and when I went to the kitchen, I had burned the shepherd's pie. So the rolls were useless, and the shepherd's pie was burnt, and I was embarrassed. I had 15 minutes to get this meal over to Jan Bird, and I opened up my fridge, and to my embarrassment, all I had was last night's leftover spaghetti and Jell-O. And so I was really quite embarrassed to have to send this meal over. So much so I sent Donovan. I didn't even go with him. I was so embarrassed about the meal. And months later, she bore her testimony about how she knew that Heavenly Father loved her, even in times where something as simple as praying for spaghetti and Jell-O was answered. To her, amazement that night at her sharing that opportunity. It took away my embarrassment, but it also allowed me to feel a part of Heavenly Father showing his love for Jan Bird through spaghetti and Jell-O.
Season, beloved of the year, sing a rhyme, Christmas time soon will be here. Tell the true story of Jesus' birth, when as a baby he came to the earth.
Star shining so bright, lighting the world on that first Christmas night. This is the angel proclaiming the birth, singing Hosanna and peace on the earth. This is the stable, shelter so bare. Cattle and oxen first welcomed him there. This is the manger, sweet hay for a bed, waiting for Jesus to cradle his head. These are the shepherds, humble and mild, hastening to worship the